a sky the color of burnt copper, drums rolling like thunder beyond the walls, and somewhere in the maze of canals and monasteries, a bell rings for the last time. Tonight, a city of gold will burn. This was Ayutthaya, the glittering heart of Siam, a world capital of merchants and monks, a place so wealthy its spires were said to pierce heaven. And yet, on one unthinkable night in 1767, it fell. How does a city that believed itself unbreakable come apart, brick by brick, flame by flame? How does an empire become an echo? Stay with me, because the way Ayutthaya died is the story of how a nation learned to live again. This is not a quiet chronicle. It's the sound of siege drums, the creak of war elephants, the whisper of archives turning to ash. It's the last stand of a river kingdom, and the first heartbeat of a new Thailand. We're going inside the walls, hour by hour, to the night it fell. Ayutthaya rose where three rivers braided together, the Chao, Phraya, Lopburi, and Pa Sak, waters that fed orchards, markets, and moats. Canals laced the island like silver threads. Trading junks from China brushed hulls with Dutch frigates. Persian merchants bargained beneath prayer flags. Monks copied scriptures by lamplight, while royal barges slid past like carved dragons. The city's skyline was a forest of prang and chetty, brick and stucco glowing at sunset, gold leaf catching firelight. From here, Siam ruled for more than 4 centuries, negotiating, warring, marrying power and diplomacy. Ayutthaya was a hunger that fed itself, rice out, silver in, teak and tin, porcelain and pepper, the pulse of half a world. But prosperity breeds rivals, and old quarrels don't sleep. To the west, the Konbaung dynasty of Burma had risen like a storm. They'd tasted Siamese strength before, and they wanted to finish the story. Conquest wasn't just about borders. It was about memory, about which empire would be remembered as the one that swallowed the other. Ayutthaya had walls, cannons, river defenses, and pride. Pride is a fortress with hidden gates. By 1765, Burmese armies were on the move, not one hammer, but 2, swinging from north and south. Generals Maha Narata and Naemyo Tihapate advanced like jaws closing, cutting supply lines, cracking forts along the frontier. Villages emptied into the roads. Refugees flowing toward Ayutthaya's island. Every cart a rumor, every rumor another small surrender. Inside the capital, the court debated. Voices sharp with fear masked as certainty. Reinforce the embankments, dredge the canals, position elephants as living battering rams near the gates. Cannons were moved to bastions. Powder counted and recounted. Rice granaries sealed. The city believed in its moat, believed in its river, believed in its miracles. But siege is a slow knife. Burmese engineers studied the currents, raised dikes, cut through levees upstream. Water, Ayutthaya's ally, began to betray it, trickling away from moats, lowering like a held breath. When the wet season fled, the ditch that circled the island looked less like a barrier and more like a blueprint. Skirmishes flared at the outer works, flashes of smoke and shouting across muddy ditches. Siamese defenders fought with ferocity. Matchlocks cracking, pikes bristling, war elephants trumpeting like living drums. But the arcs of Burmese trenches inched closer. A patient geometry of death. Zigzags that licked toward the walls, each yard paid for with blood and time. Inside, the markets changed. Silk gave way to sacks of rice, spices to arrow shafts, the price of salt rose like a bad omen. Monasteries fed the hungry, and then ran out. The city, famed for its abundance, learned the taste of rationing. Nights were no longer scented with jasmine and coconut smoke, but with tallow, sweat, and gunpowder. The bells still rang for prayers, but between them, people listened for shovels. Sieges don't just grind walls, they grind minds. Weeks became months. Months became a winter of the spirit. Courtiers whispered, generals argued, merchants hid what they could not sell. The Burmese built higher platforms for their guns, their shot now arcing into courtyards where children had played. Roof tiles shattered, stupas lost faces, and every statue that fell felt like a prophecy. Ayutthaya had been sacked before, repulsed invasions, rebuilt, reglittered. But 1767 was different. The twin jaws had closed. The countryside was bled dry, and no ally was coming up the river with sails like salvation. Daring sorties by Siamese detachments bought time, but time is expensive, and the treasury was emptying into the moat. There were moments of courage that make you hold your breath even now. Monks carrying buckets to douse fires sparked by hot shot. Women passing stones to rebuild a breach in the dead of night. Gunners who held their posts until the barrels glowed. And, yes, the quiet leadership of a provincial governor with a trader's blood and a fighter's patience. Phra Tak, the man history would remember as Taksin. He saw the pattern forming, saw the river dropping, saw the math of survival narrowing to a single line. When your walls are failing, you choose between dying splendidly or living to fight another day. In the storm's eye, while Burmese trenches crept like roots toward the heart, Phra Tak made his choice. With a small force, loyal soldiers, toughened boatmen, Chinese Teochew merchants turned fighters, he cut south through the night. No banners, no drums, only the hush of paddles and the scrape of hulls against mud. A breakout is a knife fight in the dark, a wager that chaos can be engineered. They slipped past pickets, burst through a weak point, fought, bled, vanished into mangroves. Behind them, Ayutthaya's walls still stood, but one of its last true options had just sailed into the black water. South and east to Thonburi, to the hard work of rebuilding an army out of survivors and stubbornness. The story of Taksin is another night. But remember this: sometimes the future must leave the past behind, to return for it later, and then the day without a dawn. April 1767. The moats were low, the powder was thin, the men were exhausted. At the northern works, sappers had tunneled and stacked combustibles. Elsewhere, ladders went up like a forest growing in reverse. Burmese drums started before the sun, a rhythm older than arguments, answered by Siamese gongs that sounded like iron hearts. The breach came not as a thunderclap, but as a tearing. A section of wall lost its shape, stones coughing dust, defenders clawing at rubble as if they could knead history back together. War elephants moved in, tusks sheathed in iron, towers on their backs bristling with archers. The gates splintered, and the city that had believed it could not be entered learned otherwise. Fire began as a rumor, a red flicker in a wooden quarter, then a ladder of sparks climbing into dry roofs. Ayutthaya was a city of brick, yes, but also of timber, lacquer, oil, cloth, books, and all the small flammable faiths of daily life. Wind ran through lanes like a fugitive, carrying embers. Monasteries went up in orange sighs, libraries exhaled centuries into smoke, The archives, diplomatic letters, chronicles, law codes, poetry, curled to ash, pages lifting like black snow over a red river. Looting is always ugly, but in a city of wonders, it becomes surreal. Gold leaf flaked from statues and stuck to barefoot soles. Rubies disappeared into fists. Temple bells fell and rang one last wrong note. There was slaughter. There were surrenders. There were small mercies. A hand that pulled a child from a fire. A soldier who turned away at a threshold. But the pattern was fixed. Ayutthaya was being unmade. What does it sound like when a civilization loses its voice? It sounds like chanting drowned by crackling, like the clatter of ceramics breaking, like 1,000 names forgetting themselves at once. By nightfall, the skyline that had once looked like a crown looked like a saw. The prang of great temples stood as burning silhouettes, stubborn, accusing. The island city, so proud of its water, learned that fire writes faster. No chronicle can weigh the losses, not just the palaces and the stupas, but the genealogies of families, the maps of trade, the recipes and theater scripts and quiet jokes that knit a people together. When the city fell, Siam didn't just lose buildings, it lost memory. And memory is the spine of identity. And yet, if fire writes fast, people write longer. News of the sack traveled like a wound. Villages whispered prayers for the dead. Boatmen carried survivors hidden under mats. Monks led the displaced along river paths. Across the mangroves and orchards, a rumor hardened into intent. Taksin was gathering men, forging a blade from broken steel. From Thonburi he moved, striking at garrisons, pulling scattered battalions into his orbit. Not a king yet, but a center of gravity, a promise with a sword. By late 1767 and into 1768, the counter-rhythm began, not the roar of a capital, but the drumbeat of a comeback. Thonburi, across the river from the ruins of Ayutthaya, became the new heart, a strategic pivot at the mouth of the Chao Phraya. Fewer spires, more grit. From here, Taksin fought like a man trying to reassemble a shattered mirror. Each shard a province, each victory a reflection of what had been lost. He pushed back at Burmese incursions, brokered with Chinese merchants, disciplined his ranks with a harsh, necessary hand. In 1768 he wore a crown, not of gold leaf, but of responsibility. Ayutthaya was ash, but Siam was not. That is the difficult truth, and the necessary miracle. The ruins did not vanish. They stood in the wet light of dawns and the bruised gold of evenings. Walls bitten by cannon, stone lotus petals blackened. People returned, step by step, to salvage bricks, to pray among the charred chedi, to say names. Memory, it turns out, can live in ruins. It can grow roots there, and send green shoots into new capitals, new centuries. So what did the night teach, other than sorrow? It taught that geography is a weapon. Rivers are allies until someone holds the levees upstream. It taught that walls are only as strong as supply lines, and that pride is a beautiful and brittle armor. It taught that archives are not luxuries, they are lifeboats, and when you burn them, the survivors must swim through history without charts. But it also taught this: identity can survive catastrophe. A nation can be kicked in the chest and still stand up, breathing smoke, eyes stinging, sword in hand. Out of the ashes of 1767 rose the resilience that would carry Siam, and later Thailand, through the centuries, adapting, absorbing, remembering. Walk Ayutthaya's ruins today and you will hear it. Not in words, but in the dignified silence of brick warmed by the sun, in the way banyan roots cradle fallen Buddhas, in the way the wind threads itself through doorways that open onto sky. The night it fell is also the morning it began again. Somewhere in the smoke of 1767, a bell kept ringing long after the temple beneath it had become flame. Maybe a monk struck it in defiance. Maybe the heat made the metal sing. Either way, the sound traveled across the river, into the mangroves, into the years. Ayutthaya fell, yes, but the bell did not stop. It became the heartbeat of a people who refused to be only a ruin, who rebuilt on the river, who crowned a new king, who stitched memory back together with thread made of ash and stubbornness. Listen, you can almost hear it, even now. Dong, dong, dong. And that is how a city of gold burned, and a nation learned to live again.